Hey guys, welcome back to another live Play&Explain video. Again 200 zoom, unfortunately didn't catch the 500 zoom pool in quite a while. But let's hope we get some interesting hands. Queen deuce always calling. Versus 2.2 I will have to expand my calling range. I mean, queen deuce would be calling versus a bigger open anyway. Facing a snap check back makes me think the guy is quite likely to be a recreational player. And now we definitely want value bet. And probably can't. It's close, but I think with our kick I don't want to go bigger than a block bet. Table 1, even versus a big bet, we will need to call with our vector flush draw. Versus a pot bet on those ace boards, we usually get to fold quite some pairs already, but he goes for the min bet anyway, so of course every pair would have to call versus this sizing, at least every board pair. And I don't think I want to raise this candidate. When I make two pair, ace king also gets there, so that doesn't sound great, so would rather check raise a hand like 8-6 in spades, for example, than this combo. And I don't think I will do a lot of check raising on this board anyway, because it's quite terrible. I don't even have any of the sets, at least I may have some 8s, but not even full frequency. As spade, we get to value bets quite thin because he went really tiny on the flop, but I think my hand is still a bit too weak to value bet. With the flush getting there and an overcard, I don't expect him to value bet the river at 9. I do certainly have a pretty cool hand to go for a check raise. He goes for the min bet, or the block bet, which is not really a thing, and don't really want to bluff raise versus that too much. I think I just call and perhaps he shows up with a bluff. But those block bets, in my opinion, they are like, you would think that they are depolarized because he bets small, but I think it's actually quite a polarized strategy, where I don't expect him to value bet like a 9 for this sizing. So I think he's saying to me he has like a decent check or better, but he just bets small. And quite often I think a lot of hands that want to induce might choose this sizing, so I think it's better to either call or fold than to raise here. And the king in diamonds is pretty nice because it doesn't really block any of his bluffs, because most hands that have the king in diamonds in them would be quite incentivized to barrel the turn. And you can still have hands like 7-6 in spades that maybe try to go for the cheap bluff. And our pot odds are so great that it's fine when we lose often. I think ace 9 is the cutoff versus 2.5. So versus the presumably recreational player now, table 1. Again a very fast flop check back. The standard play would be to play quite polarized, but I also see some merit in just going for a small bet, doing the betting ourselves when he snap checks back the flop. I'm not sure if I expect too much aggression from bluffs from him on the turn. He might just be more of a face-up player, and I'm just trying to bet what I think my hand is worth. So now I think I go for a half pot bet, seems fine. 3/4 might be a bit too much, and I think 1/3 would be a bit too little for my hand. On the turn, we get to be quite aggressive for a medium sizing. We want to value bet turn king x, and as the board is paired, you usually don't want to go too huge. As I'm playing versus Recreational, and again I'm liking to do what my hand prefers. I don't mind betting a bit bigger, as my hand is quite strong, and I would like him to fold some stronger ace-x and 7x, and I think if I bet too small, he might be a bit too sticky with those hands, which would not be a good outcome for my exact hand, which benefits from fold equity. Probably another Recreational player. Versus 3x, this is kind of close, but as we are versus a likely Recreational, I think this is probably still an easy call. I mean, it could be bad, we don't know if he's tight or if he uses different open sizing and 3x is a stronger sizing. He goes for half a bet, makes it even more likely that he's a Recreational, or almost dead certain now. I think the only play here to do is click call. And again, I think we can go for a block bet. He can still have weaker queen x and pocket pairs, other weaker board pairs that we can extract value from. Table 1, quite a bad board for us. We need to check a lot, especially when a big blind doesn't donk. And would expect a lot of small bets now. Overbets are also fine, I think, for the big blind. And yeah, unfortunately he had ace queen, but that's fine. Of course, you are allowed to lose versus stronger value hands in the block. That's the nature of the game. Ace 5 suited, always free betting. And table 2, half pot check. My hand could go either way. On the medium ING, the medium ING is not really decisive, because I think my hand is pretty much 50-50 if it c-bets or not, would be my estimation. Turn 2 pair, but quite. I think this might actually be one that we could check back. There's a lot of runouts where we can't value bet free splits. Any flush runout, even on some, like on a check where he makes ace check, we are not super happy value betting our hand for big sizings. And I think this is actually a fine hand to go for a check back. Also allows him, let's say, as a hand like king 10, queen 10, like if those hands that would always fold if I bet big on the turn. Those hands are drawing dead, so I want to keep them in. So I think ace 10 I would always bet, and I think ace 4 is actually a nice candidate to check back. Now we have a raise on the river, which is cool. And I think our main raise size here should be half pot, centered around our ace-x. Could maybe exploitatively go bigger, as I don't know the player and I don't think he will exploit me for my sizing tail when I raise the river, but I think my hand doesn't want to go too huge anyway. But they are going to check this one, but I think this is a decent candidate to check back. As a rule of thumb, whenever you have a lot of runouts where you can't value bet your hand anymore, going to open the 7-6 on table 1, you should start thinking about maybe checking back the turn. Because you're not really missing out, there are not a lot of streets where you are missing out on value. And there's also some value in losing less money when you are behind versus like ace 10, ace 6. This guy is short, but the avatar seems a bit familiar to me. I'm not sure if this guy is a recreational or not. Maybe we find out. Mix between call and 4-bet, roll pretty high. Those king 9 suited, king jack suited get into the 4-bet range quite often. So that's 4-bet and hope that we don't get jammed on. Awesome flop. We can go for a bet with our entire range. And yeah, there's not a lot my opponent can do about it. King high balls are quite bad for the imposition caller. And table 2 imposition has 7-6 off, we don't, so we need to be a bit careful. However, we're really aggressive and it's not like we can't have c-bets. Table 1, I think actually queen is interesting because I could see usually would play half pot check. On the queen, I actually think I like another small bet because so much of my range improves on the queen. And I could see wanting to bet hands like turned queen x to pressure some of his checks 10s with a spade that called the flop. Although I'm not even sure if 10s always gets to call, as the board is so bad for imposition. So a pretty interesting spot on the turn. I'm not exactly sure what the best strategy here would be. Table 2 I faced the raise and now face a barrel on the turn. Pretty much all the, also versus a short stack guy, so presumably recreational. And pretty much all the draws get there, so I'm already very unhappy about the spot. But of course can't fold my hand. And yeah, I mean king queen is of course way too thin of a bet on the turn, and I think this makes it really likely that our opponent is indeed a recreational player. Versus the 2x, even at this rake structure, I would like to implement some flats, and also there's still the possibility our opponent is a recreational, I'm not quite sure. And we face a small c-bet. We could potentially raise. I actually wouldn't hate it. Maybe it's not great because you play versus a complete unknown and we don't know if he is an Uber station. Table 1, I called the 3-bet, faced a small c-bet, expecting him to probably c-bet quite a high frequency or close to his entire range here for the sizing. And interesting spot on the turn now. I think I would rather bet queen check than like king check or ace check even with the added gut shot. I roll pretty low though, and I don't think the hand. I'm not sure. I'm gonna go for the bet. I think we want to go for big sizing as well. Table 1, table 2 with the spade, I think we bet quite often. I hate my life if we face the jam. We do face the jam. In theory this would not be a bet fold, I can tell you that much, but I think I'm just going to bet fold. Yeah, maybe, I don't think I butchered this hand, I think it was just an unlucky outcome. I'm not quite sure how often we are supposed to barrel on a turn, but I think queen check with the additional gut shot will be played quite aggressive as we perform really well against hands like pocket jacks and check 10-9 suited, like hands that have pair plus draws. This guy very likely recreational now, starting to limp as well. And he goes for the donk, so I think a pretty good spot to be aggressive and raise. I need to be careful to play quick, my time bank is a bit low. And we can write down that he donks small and then folds to a raise, which is a very good info to have on your opponent. I think 7-4 versus the 3x would be a bit too much, and interesting spot here. I think this would be just a bit too out of line, but if the button 3-bets are really out of line, then we of course also have to widen our quote 4-bet range, although with the small sizing it doesn't even really feel like a cold forward, but more like a re-ISO raise. Another limp. Pool seems incredibly soft right now. I think two options, one is limp behind, the other one is to raise. And on table 2, I think I could either go for a c-bet or even potentially a check raise. But if he steps bigger, I would be forced to fold my hand, and with the backdoor flush draw, I wouldn't really like to do that. So, going to put this one into the c-bet range. Not loving this, of course. I think I might actually go for the reclick. Snap small raise in position is, in my opinion, often quite weak. And I'm not sure if he raises a lot of queen x, but he might just want to raise and freeze the action. So I'm actually going to be very aggressive here and try to barrel him off and hope that he doesn't have a queen, basically. Could be way off with my read here, but that's just like I think raises from recreationals in position are, just generally speaking, quite often not really strong. Unfortunately, no scare card got there, so he might want to still catch if he has like a 6, and we could potentially still win. So yeah, I think on this round I'm actually giving up and even have some pot share, I think. And he did have a queen. So we will write this down. Ace is always calling versus the 4-bet. Blind versus blind, the ranges are supposed to be quite wide, so always calling, and pretty cool flop for sure. And if he even checks back again like queen 10 here, then also bluff catching would probably be quite appealing with my ace 9, because he basically doesn't value bet anything. And having the 9 hearts would really suck, so I think I would have folded it, but without the heart, I think if I had, let's say, like ace 10 and spade or whatever, I think it probably would be make a decent amount of money bluff catching versus that player. And yeah, just happily clicking call again. Versus this sizing scheme, we don't really get to fold anything anyway. Face the snap raise. I think kings will mostly want to 3-bet on the flop. Versus the check, I expect him to check fold 100%, but what can you do? And table 2, of course, it's not like we are super happy going broke here, but I think it's still fine. Deuce is a complete brick. I don't think my hand benefits a lot by checking, so I think I'm mostly fine betting it. Now Jack 10 gets there, so I definitely can't go all in. So my options are either to check or to block. And blocking king, queen, I actually think if I check, I'm in a line where I'm pretty sure my opponent will never have a bluff, so I don't think I'm indifferent here. I think I just have a pretty clear fold. And if I block, I have to worry about my opponent maybe turning a hand like queen check, queen 10 into a bluff. So again, a forward spot on ace-high boards, you can size down a bit smaller. A lot of interesting spots right now. Then on the turn we need to be quite careful, as we see that flop with range, we have all of our kings, queens, checks. So going for a lot of checking is good. And if he stabs small, then we could check call or check jam. Main bluffs here would be turn 10x. But he doesn't stab small, he bets bigger, so he's polarizing himself anyway, so I think ace queen I'm always just calling, and if I had ace king I might still go for the all-in. Should be a pretty good run out. I probably should think about donk. I probably should have some donk jams here, because I improve to pocket queens every single time. So yeah, I think I probably have donk jumps on the queen would be my guess. So yeah, a lot of interesting hands. The action doesn't stop. We face the next 4-bet. So even ace king suited, I think would mainly want to call, at least versus a proper 4-bet range. A lot of people under 4-bet though, so while I don't mind trapping aces, I think ace king and versus most players also kings, I would just put the money in, as I just don't expect them to have too many ace jack off, ace 10 offsuit, which would incentivize me to keep those hands in. As 3x we will fold here. But yeah, a lot of interesting spots. I think the king's hand in the blind versus blind spot was also really interesting. Of course, it's really tough to play those spots because, okay, this is a recreational player. But he chose quite the raggish 4-bet setting blind v blind, I have to give him that one. Maybe also just, I mean, is every player a recreational player here? That's kind of crazy. But yeah, back to the king's hand. It's not like let's say as queen 9 or pocket 4s, it's not like our hand performs great versus those hands by just calling the raise on the flop and being passive. But you actually would rather be aggressive, put your opponent in the bluff catch spot, and yeah, put them to the test. Instead of playing passive, allowing them to check back on the turn, realizing the equity for free. But it's tough because you don't know your opponent's range, you don't know if he's raising like a proper range or like at least a decent frequency, or if he's like just raising the nuts. So it's of course a lot, it has a lot to do with assumptions if you know the guys. Table 2, I think half pot check. My hand can go for the bet, but also plays fine in the checking line. And ace was not the river that I was looking for. Managed to escape with a window, so that's nice. Sevens, one of the few hands I think I checked down here with. Maybe sometimes he has king queen. Table 1 always calling versus MP and a bigger sizing. We are already not happy, but it's fine. Then my opponent should size down to like half pot sizing. Yeah, I think this pot bet is too big for this spot, as I also have a lot of strong hands. Table 2 always calling, but yeah, Jack 10 can't really get away. Blindly blind, you can't really see bet too much or like range bet a lot of boards, but this I think is one, at least for this sizing. And yeah, I think queen jack suited will always call. I think every pocket pair needs to call here, so my range is still, my continuing range is quite wide. And table 1 definitely folding. I mean, this would be a very optimistic hero call, to say the least. And table 2, I don't think I get to value bet the check. I think a hand like king queen could definitely go for a value bet, or king 10. I'm blocking the check. But I think queen jack is a bit too much to go for the block bet. But a ton of action, so I think this might be the most action-packed 27 minutes that I've recorded so far in my YouTube career. Just have to come up with a good thumbnail. Action-packed session at 200 zoom. Something along those lines maybe. So this guy goes 3x, which often is indicative of a weaker player, but doesn't have to be, like some regulars also use it. But we just keep in mind that it makes him a bit more suspicious to be a recreational player. Table 2 pot check, my hand always checks, and I think the main bluff candidates here, I think like deuce X would be pretty good. Deuce X doesn't really show down, and it's basically a hand that has 5 outs, decent unblockers, and also low pocket pairs with a diamond are probably nice turn barrels for us. And as played, we check back and hope that he shows down pocket 8s. Today is the day where we get to win in those spots, because our check down EV really isn't very high here. But yeah, thankfully our opponent chose a passive line with pocket 6s. Yeah, I don't think he should arrive with 6s on this river a lot. Not sure if it's like an EV mistake in a vacuum, but okay, we face the pot donk. I think this is the pot donk I am going to fold. But I think his hand should already mostly see bet flop. As played, mostly bet the turn, and on the river his jack pick is good. Maybe I'm on a turn, I'm actually not so sure. 6s is maybe a bit close. Let's say I had like 5s, 4s, 3s. I mean, I think those hands for sure would rather already start barreling. But definitely a nice outcome for us when we have 9s, that's for sure. Perhaps I'll keep this video a bit shorter. I mean, for one, we already had a lot of action, and also I'm not sure what's the ideal length of a video for YouTube. I think maybe my videos are a bit too long, but there will be probably the hardcore fans of the channel. They probably would want the videos to be as long as possible, but maybe the more casual viewers are a bit scared just by the length of the video already. And I think we could either check raise or check call. I think check calling and seeing what sizing he bets on the turn might give us more information about his hand. So I don't mind this line. And yeah, always blocking on the river. Also, if I had a backdoor flush draw, I would have been more incentivized to raise the flop. But yeah, I think there's quite a lot of value in checking and letting the recreational give you more information. So again, we have the option between ISO raise and limp. I think as the big blind is also a weaker player, I prefer to limp behind. And table 2, I mean, this is close versus this sizing. But suppose I just fold and call every suited hand. So he min-longed the flop. We already have to note that he is quite weak when he does that, but I think with my hand there's not really any point raising. But yeah, both of those players I don't think were very strong on the flop. Now delay overbets, which is interesting. Actually should have watched the hand to the end. Could have been an interesting showdown. Check 9 suited, too weak. E6-3, not the greatest of boards. 5-4 offsuit is an open-ender. Board is also two-tone. My hand can still bet some of the time, but on a lowish roll I'm gonna go for the check. And nothing to do but check fold. I think if I had 10-9 with a spade, my hand probably would be a pure c-bet. It would maybe depend if I would know the stabbing strategy of my opponent. If I, for example, knew that he would only stab small, then I could also check that hand, because the hand is strong enough to continue, either by check calling or raising. I mean, probably more like check raising. But he could also step big, and then I would have to fold a hand like 10-9 with a spade, which would be pretty bad. So without that information in the blind, you would just want to see bet those hands. But the stabbing strategy from your opponent does influence your c-bet strategy as well, and vice versa. Gets called by this guy, who already pot donked, so now he snap checks. Can't really make too much out of that just yet. But he seems to be aggressive. Takes a lot of aggressive lines. This is another one of them. I mean, feels really close with like some backdoor straight draws, but I guess I fold this one. without the backdoor flush draw. But yeah, I was not really sure. Maybe I should just range bet call here, but 8-5 suited seems like a pretty decent candidate to start stabbing. A lot of backdoor straight draws, and of course my hand doesn't mind getting some folds immediately on the flop. Oh, shouldn't have fast folded this one with the... Shouldn't have fast folded the queen 4 with the recreational in the big blind. Really terrible board for us. I think this was the guy who played the pocket king set against blind blind. Not sure if he's a regular recreational player, but as the big blind is a suspected weaker player, I imagine that also regular would flat the small blind a bit more often. And this hits his flatting range like about as good as it gets, I think. Pocket deuces, pocket 5s, 6s, 4s, 3s have gut shots. So I think I really need to be super careful here. And I think I just fold. I mean, if it heads up, I would call. But given that there's a decent chance that our opponent might check raise, I would rather just fold. And it's not like it's a great spot if he folds anyway. I think king 7 a bit too weak to do something about the limp. Facing check raise. Nothing to do but calling, of course. Would be nice to have some infos about our opponent, but the most obvious draw gets there. We are also in somewhat tight positions. A lot of his bluff raises should be hands like 3-2 suited, 8-6 suited, and as I don't have reads on this guy, I just have to imagine that he is... I just have to play versus how I think the pool plays, and I think this is probably just not a profitable continue on the turn. Table 2 is interesting. I think my hand definitely can go for a bet, and I think for bet sizing, any medium sizing is decent. I want to value bet hands like check 8 suited, queen check, king check, those sort of hands. I don't want to go too huge. Also imposition should improve a lot as well. And guess I just fold now, unfortunately. But yeah, with the king check hand, it's tough because some players could easily be overbluffing here, but some players might just never have a bluff anymore when 9-10 gets there. Table 2, those queen low boards are actually really great for you, so you can even go for a half pot range bet, I think. At least on the rainbow texture. B3 bet ace queen off, he can't, I don't think he gets to call ace queen. So this of course is pretty good when the flop is queen high, and he also shouldn't have threes, he should rarely have sixes. Okay, we face a raise, which is really interesting. Versus this, we should need to click back a lot. I mean, my hand seems really close between every option. I don't know how players are playing. He might just never have only raised the flop with nuts, which would not be great. But basically the min raise makes his bluffs close. Let's say bluff raises hand like 6-7 suited or pocket deuces. I mean 6-7 is an easy call, but like even pocket deuces is in a tough spot versus the min click. Turn we have to check a lot again because we click with somewhat of a depolarized range. And I think now we are again close between calling and folding. This hand certainly could be quite interesting. Maybe it just has pocket sixes every time, but who knows. Hey, Beethoven. I'm tipping he had maybe I had like 7-6 suited or a low pair or something. He had king check complete there. Okay. But yeah, that's what I mean with this responding by clicking. Like his call versus this is not bad because he gets such a great price. He can't really fold too much. So this is like where this really weird spew dynamic exists. Where because he can't fold anything, I'm incentivized to click quite a lot. And like a hand like pocket nines doesn't mind if he sometimes folds a hand. And it's not like calling is great, right? I think my hand is close between all three options. I think if we look at a sim, it will probably be a mix between all three options would be my guess. And why I decided to ultimately raise nines was that I thought that nines doesn't really interact with the hands that I'm thinking he might be bluffing with, which would be low pocket pairs or like hands like he had, like the Broadway region, which would be like Jack X, 10X heavy, and nines doesn't block any of those holdings, which is kind of nice. And yeah, also I just wasn't really buying it, to be honest, the raise. Because if you sit there with pocket sixes, I mean, you are quite happy that then putting in the money for you right on the spot. So I thought the raise might be a bit over bluffy. But it's one of those where if you play versus an unknown player, it's really tough because you don't know how the guy plays. And if you just chose your sixes, you look like a complete maniac, a complete moron if you lose your stack with nines this way. Because I might have also called the river. But yeah, I made the judgment call that it might be an overbluffed note, and yeah, decided to continue my hand. And came to the conclusion that calling or raising are both fine options, but decided to raise. But they are certainly a spicy one, that's for sure. I think that's also a pretty nice one to end on. Don't think there will be another highlight, and the video is about 45 minutes, so I think that's a decent length. But yeah, interesting, interesting spots. A lot of interesting spots actually in this one. Like this was only one of the few. I mean, it was the most like the weirdest one of them probably, but there were a lot of interesting spots I felt like in this video. Table 2, 75 check, and check's always going to check back. On the ace-king boards, which would be really good for you, like even some strong under pairs already start bluffing, but on the ace-queen boards I don't think that's the case. Table 2, half pot check. Roll pretty low, so I think I will check this one back this time. I think having a spade would also be... If I had ace-5 with the 5 in spade, I would probably always c-bet. Table 1, always checking back, which would also be the majority play for my range after I check the flop. Yeah, this is like definitely not a thing. But if he thinks I never check back a flush draw on the flop, then it's good. And just checking down pocket checks and mostly winning. But not this time. But I think king queen is a good check. The queen blocks my check back range. So does the king, for the most part. So yeah, I think I like his. I don't mind his check on the river. Maybe I should have gone a bit bigger. We are deeper here versus this guy. So maybe we'll get one more interesting spot. No, he decides to fold. Alright guys, so I think plenty of interesting stuff, and yeah, thanks for watching. See you next one. Bye.